Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another powerful episode of the Shaq Podcast. Today, we are diving deep into a model that quietly powers so many of the world's biggest businesses, the business process outsourcing model, or as we all know it, BPO. And joining me today is someone whose experience and insight make this conversation truly special. The incredible, the illustrious Kevin Gaylord. Kevin is a results driven operations executive with over 20 years of experience leading large scale, customer centric organizations across SaaS, fintech, and BPO. Is the kind of a leader who aligns strategy with execution, transforms operations, and builds people first cultures that deliver measurable results. Kevin, I want you to start by saying a huge thank you. I want to start by saying a huge thank you for your generosity and for taking the time to share your experience, knowledge, and wisdom here on the Shack podcast. It truly means a lot to have you with us today, Kevin. And I thank you from the deepest depths of my heart. Thank you so much for coming to the Shack podcast and sharing your wisdom so generously. How are you today?
Yeah, I'm great. I'm great. Look, I always enjoy. We've done a number of these, Shaq, and I always enjoy it. We have a good time, and this topic in particular, I'm excited to talk about. I'm a huge fan of effective utilization of BPOs, so I think we're gonna have some fun today.
Awesome. Awesome. And to my viewers who are watching from around the world, people who are watching on Facebook right now, people who are watching on YouTube right now, and people who are watching on LinkedIn. And I just want you to, just tell me where you're tuning in from, which part of the world, and just say if, say, tell us if you're able to listen to us, or if we are audible or not. If you are able to listen to us, all okay. And special thanks to StreamYards for extending their offer to me, their premium features. Thank you so much, StreamYards. But I'll still negotiate hard on the 6 months package. Anyhow, my lights are flickering. One moment, please, Kevin.
Sure, take time. Ooh, it's just me. What should I talk about?
I'm back. I'm back. I'm back. So Kevin, let's start with uh, uh, let's start with understanding. First of all, before we start the conversation, if you allow me, I want to speak to you about a recent news,
Hmm.
which is a sad news. It's a recent news, and I want you to give your views on that. I hope you got to know that Meta laid off 600 AI engineers. That means they laid off people beforehand, and then they hired people for the artificial intelligence department to work for them, and they have laid off those people, those engineers as well, 600 in total, I think. So, quickly, your views on that artificial intelligence.
Uh, to be fair, I don't know the details of that, Shaq, but if, just at a guess, there'd probably be an argument that there is some uh, sort of jumping the gun hiring going on, and has been. Let's get as many. Let's sort of corner the market on AI talent. And the funny reality of AI is, you do a really good job with it, and you start eliminating the human need. So if you bring on, I don't know how many people. Let's say you have 1,000 AI people in there, and they do a really good job. Then you're not going to need 1,000 people for very long, because those positions are going to be perpetuated by the technology. So that would be my guess, but I no, I hadn't even heard that yet, and it's unfortunate to hear. I think just sort of my vantage is Meta or Facebook or whatever historically has hired and fired aggressively. So I think they go in waves, and while I would love to be involved with any kind of a dominant global organization, that one feels a little volatile to me, and I think there's a little bit of concern. I would be concerned if I were, any kind of technology expert and going to work with that company. I might want to go a different way. In this case, after the conversation we had earlier this week about the all the AI acquisition efforts and infrastructure changes, I would probably aim closer to the the new consortium that's established globally and steer clear of the Zuckerberg madness.
Exactly, exactly. I totally agree with that point as well. And also, to be very honest with you, I mean, say too much hiring, then too much firing. I mean, say you hire people just for the namesake. I'm not sure what they will get by doing that. But anyhow, might be, I mean, say it is because of the stakeholders, they have to show some uh, expense, I think, because of that. I'm not sure because I have never been in a leadership role. So anyhow, uh, what has happened has happened, and might be because of artificial intelligence, as you have explained about it, and I've asked you a question: should we be ready for our chance and upskill ourselves and learn and invest time and money in learning artificial intelligence? And you said that yes, we should be ready for our chance when the jobs are created, and we should upskill ourselves. I totally agree with that point. So anyhow, let's go ahead and start the discussion uh, on today's topic. So today's topic and the title of this podcast is decoding the BPO model: how US companies scale globally, with Kevin Gaylord. So Kevin Gaylord explains us what is a BPO model and how it works, and how it generates employment opportunities for people in countries like India and other places with India, Indonesia, Philippines, and Africa as well. So the discussion is going to be based on this completely. So starting with you, Kevin, with your kind permission, let me just start with the first question to you. So, Kevin, let's start at the foundation. When we talk about the BPO model, people often picture call centers, and it's so much more than that. But in reality, it's so much more than that. So, can you walk us through that business process outsourcing, what it really means in today's world?
Sure. So yeah, I think the first misconception is that a BPO in the world is just a contact center solution. Now, that said, and I don't know the percentage, but I would guess 70 or 80% of BPO workers are doing some form of live customer interaction, whether it be over the phone or through live chat, something like that. I mean, certainly the vast majority of them, because the effort there is, in essence, to capitalize on a few things. And I'm going to have to emphasize this. So there's going to be a little bit of a rant, and it just needs to be. So first thing is, are BPOs used because they're less expensive? That's got to be a key question that has to be discussed. Um, yeah, I mean, you'd just be lying if you suggested otherwise. Uh, it is far less expensive to hire somebody in the Philippines than it is to hire somebody in New York City or Los Angeles, without question. I mean, when I say far less, I'm talking it's 2 or 3 times the cost, maybe more. So there's a meaningful reduction in expense, and I'll talk about the downsides at some point here too. But So yes, the cost absolutely has something to do with it. But then there's also this weird thing going on in the United States over the last. I'm going to say we've probably got a good two generations of workforce that are. Ooh, how do I put this delicately? Very selective about what they want to do. So, for example, when I was coming up in business, I would do anything, right? And I even used to tell my leadership teams that when I first got into leadership roles, I would say, guys, if the organization asks us to crawl into the dumpster and wash it out with bleach and clean it out every night before we go home or before we go home, then you have two choices. You go out there and you do the best job you can, or you go work somewhere else. So I would use that idea to remind them and myself that ultimately, you know, you this is it's a job, it's not a right. We're not a socialist organization. We have to take what we can get. And when we look at the last few generations of workers in the United States specifically, and this may be true globally to an extent, but certainly in the United States, what we end up saying is, or what we end up seeing rather, is this more selective desire, like, I don't want to work third shift, and oh, you're playing around over there. I can tell, Shaq. But being more choosy over the hours and the type of work that they want to do, and so on and so forth. So in that, you almost force businesses into the position of using BPOs to fill less desirable working shifts or positions and so on. So then you come up with this sort of hybridized uh, utilization model, and I think this is the majority of what we see, which is what are the shifts that we have difficulty filling? So in the United States, that's generally going to be that third shift. So anywhere from say 8 9 p.m. Eastern or New York time until maybe 5 a.m. In Eastern or New York time. So the overnight shift here out well for areas like the Philippines where you're actually talking about a day shift. Uh, so you solve that problem. You're doing it at a highly reduced cost, and then we kind of blend into what are the I'm going to start to hit the downside. Geez, I'm getting real rambly here. I'm sorry. There's a lot to unpack with this one, but let's roll the clock back about 30 years, and this is when BPOs, and again we're kind of narrowing in on call centers because that's the majority of it, but BPOs became meaningful in the 1990s, in the latter part of the 1990s, and that specifically, you were having way too much fun over there, Shaq. That specifically was. Oh, go ahead.
Kevin, please bear with me for a moment. You just keep explaining about the BPO model. I'll just be back.
Yeah, no problem. So in the mid to late 1990s, there was a big shift to this BPO model. That was really when it kind of became a thing. And India was at the center of this revolution, as it were. So India, and I don't know the specific cities, but I want to say there were just two or three primarily at the start, started building up these uh, contact centers that were being used. I'm not going to say exclusively, but primarily, I would think, by corporations out of the United States, and were charging. I mean, it was astronomical. You'd be crazy to be in a business at that time and not utilize these BPO agents for at least some aspect of your business because it was so inexpensive. Uh, and because of that, what ended up happening is a ton of businesses in the United States immediately adopted this. They slashed their overhead, but there was this really negative backlash, and that because of two things. One, I think there was a rush on the side of the United States businesses to get into this, and so there was not nearly enough investment put into training and quality oversight and quality management and inspection of expectations and so on. Even culture building, all these things. I think they rushed into it as a cost cutting effort and watched watched as it sort of failed. On the other side, I think on the Indian side, we saw a lot of the same thing, which was rushing people into these contact centers that were not yet prepared to work in a contact center. So even in spite of not maybe having the corporate specific knowledge, I think you had a lot of folks that one of the, I'm trying to go back to the mid 90s here, but I mean, that there were some language challenges, and then that shifted into this idea of, which is still going on, right? Oh, well, we can't call you by your name because that's not palatable to some couple in the Midwestern United States. So you need to refer to yourself as Joe from now on, and it just was disingenuous, and it's just very poorly thought out. These were all reactionary efforts to try to maintain that low cost model. So then, and there's a great book on that's been revised. I haven't read the revision, but the original book was called "The World Is Flat." It's a fantastic book that talks about this. But anyway, so then that over time, like anything in modern day capitalism, the people in India, and I mean there'd have to be millions of people that fell into this category, that started rising to the top because they excelled, right? So the better workers, the people who honed their skill sets and worked at it and got better and better and better. And there's lots and lots and lots of these folks. Well, naturally, what did they do? They started charging more. Now there's a premium asset. Well, I don't know, and Shaq, it might be nice to have you speak to this because I can't speak to uh, Indian culture or uh, but what I can say observationally is I would guess it's very strong. There's a very strong work ethic and a very aggressive uh, cultural competitiveness to excel at what you're doing. This is sort of my observation going through this because I was going through this myself in business, watching these things unfold. So what ended up happening is instead of just saying, "Hey, we have 10% or 20% of the workforce is really these premium players. They're going to cost more if you want to use these." What we ended up seeing is more like 80%, right? It was the vast majority of folks were improving, were addressing, sort of sharpening the axe. They were honing their skills in this BPO environment. And so over time, I'm going to give you a 30-year synopsis in a minute here. I'm sorry. But so as they improved, what ended up happening is sometimes like 80% of the workforce is doing better. So like now we've got a premium solution. So now you're not getting, in the United States, you might be paying this sort of entry level uh, contact center employee, let's say $10 an hour, but you're paying for the same person in India, you might be paying $2 an hour or $1.50 an hour, something like that. And then some tack on top of that for whatever company is facilitating the process. So maybe you're spending $4 or $5 an hour for this employee, so you get half, right? But the quality wasn't the same. Well, now the quality is the same, so the or similar, we'll say better. So now we're not going to charge you $4 or $5. Now it's going to be maybe $7 or $8. Well, now the savings is much smaller. So now you're looking at 15 or 20% savings. Well, so and so in the Midwest doesn't like talking to somebody that has an accent. So for 15, 20% savings, is it worth it? So now you pull back. So there was initially a big, huge push because of cost savings to BPOs, which again was almost exclusively in India, and then a huge pullback over as the cost went up, a pullback from that, and then as things sort of over time, they had to normalize because other markets started to come into play. So India then positions itself. I don't know how this became all about India, but India then positions itself as, well, we can't just be better on the phone. We have to be technically better, right? So you have now becoming this emerging, highly educated workforce of engineers and uh, technical specialists, right? So now you're not even really pushing the frontline BPO option. Now you're moving into the KPO model, which is where these are knowledge process outsourcing. So now you're saying, well, okay, now forget what it costs. Now the best people are here. So that's a different thing. And when we look back to sort of shift back or move the lens back to the BPO, well, there were different markets emerging. The Philippines, very dominant. In the Philippines, I mean, categorically, I believe, and I apologize if I'm wrong, but I believe it's a, considered a third world economy. Uh, I could be wrong. Again, I apologize if I'm wrong. But the Philippines, there's not a lot of industry there, and the United States is, as we've talked about before, loves to spend money, and so the Philippines adopted the what was effectively the Indian model of BPO for contact centers, and then kind of became that next layer. Now, since then, we've seen that also touch lots and lots and lots of other countries. Again, we talked about earlier this week. Bogota, Colombia, the Dominican Republic is huge on this front. South Africa is getting into it. There's a lot of options. Mexico, a ton in Mexico, and there's even so there's in the United States there's lots of BPO work as well, but it's a premium cost for your U.S. workers, and that's a different model that we're not really talking about as much today. So now you start to see corporations in the United States, and this is probably just in the last 10 to 15 years, that are we've got knowledge workers embedded in the United States. These are folks that have institutional knowledge of the business, and relationships and so on and so forth. We've got front end or the more entry level, whatever, customer facing, end user facing BPO contact center and live chat employees running out of the Philippines and the Dominican Republic and various countries. And also creating redundancy, I want to point out. So you don't have to worry about if the power goes out of one place. Well, you've got it in three different countries. There's no issue. There can be a typhoon rolling over the Philippines. We'll just shift everything to the Dominican Republic. The odds of the Dominican Republic and the Philippines being under a hurricane and a typhoon at the same time are very, very low, et cetera, et cetera. And then we'll use knowledge process outsourcing for technical skills to countries like India to fill in gaps where either there aren't, it's still more cost effective to do, or there just aren't enough resources. And that's one of the things that we have seen as, again, I didn't mean this to be entirely about India, but we have seen a big shift on the IT management front uh, in the U.S. as they've become there's more of a need than there are resources, and India has more resources than I mean, just the resource base is staggering. So you end up with this model where you've got different pockets of utilization of BPOs and KPOs around the world to round out your organizational footprint. That's, by the way, in my opinion, that's what it should look like. That's a beautiful, beautiful model. Small to mid-sized businesses in the US really struggle with that, usually because they don't know, right? This is outside of their knowledge base. But larger enterprise business, I think you would be hard pressed to find any company that's in the north of, let's say, $500 million a year in the United States that isn't using BPO and KPO resources as a meaningful part of their business. So I'm sorry I got real rambly in there, but there was a lot of things I wanted to touch on. So I will now stop talking.
Now, thank you so much for explaining that in detail. And I want to apologize to you and to my audience. Today, StreamYards has introduced new features into their platform, and that is because of which we were facing some glitches in between, but everything is sorted out now. So they have introduced portrait, form of video, and a landscape. So I want to apologize for the glitch in between, but I will make sure that whatever Kevin has spoken reaches your ears. So I'm going to, uh, you know, ask my team to edit and send the message across to everyone. So nothing gets, uh, you know, left out. So thank you so much for explaining that in detail, Kevin. Never knew so many things about that. But in India, you were asking about, you were telling about that I, being in India, I know about the culture. Uh, for us, BPO was, something very, very special in the 1990s and 95. So in the Indian culture, we saw that as, say it became the lifestyle of everyone in India. Say you get a graduate degree and then you move on to these MNCs. These are not only call centers, as you've said, that these are KPOs as well. So they move out to these MNCs, which is multinational companies, and we were making good money uh, working in these call centers. And thank you to those companies which outsource the jobs to us. But there is one more thing I want to ask. Being in the United States, I'll ask you. But before that, I just want to tell you that it was like a boon to us Indians when outsourcing was introduced. Say from sales to tech support and many the customer service, everything was outsourced to us, and it was a boon because we were getting jobs, we were making good money. Most of the people in India who got their education started out from a very, very simple background, and this was the time in the 1990s, 95 to be very honest, before the Great Recession. Say at least before the Great Recession, which happened in 2007 and 2008. Everything was going great. After the Great Recession as well, until now, most of the educated youth are into these kind of outsourcing jobs. Still, it's an easy way, quick way to money, make some bucks. To be very honest, the only thing which we faced difficulty were the night shifts. Night shifts is where it is right now in India. It is 9 p.m. Indian Standard Time. So it's 11 a.m. or 11:30 a.m. in New York time. So that was the only thing, the night shifts. But we were making good money. We were able to invest that money as well, make good money as well, and live a life which we always wanted. I'm talking about the youth in India. The second part to it, it's a controversial question, I should say, but I will anyways ask you. Outsourcing is not appreciated in the US, and it is frowned upon by the US workers. I also want you to speak on this as well. If you choose not to speak, that then it's okay. But if you can, that would.
No, no. Look, just I feel like just about every time you and I meet, I at some point end up addressing some level of the controversial politics that are going on and division in U.S. Society. And right now, yeah, there is a I'm not sure the best adjective, but I mean there is a kind of an inclusionist mentality going on here, with maybe 40% of the population. It could be less. It's hard to say. It could be more. But yeah, there is this sort of America first kind of thing going on here, and um, what I will say is many corporations in the United States from a BPO standpoint. So I want to emphasize I'm not talking about manufacturing because that I think is the hub of this drama. But from a customer interaction standpoint, which is again the vast majority of this stuff, um, meaningful organizations are not dropping BPOs. They might be painting it in a slightly different way, or leaning into different utilization methodologies. For example, we know that live chat has really, in the last 10 years or so, has really become a very meaningful interaction tool. As a matter of fact, with the newer generations, they prefer, the tendency is to not call into anywhere. They would prefer to use live chat or live texting interactions. So, two things come out of that. One is nobody needs to know where they're talking, what country they're interacting with when it comes to those types of things. And so nobody cares. It really isn't a big deal. Um, so I think there is a global shift or a corporate shift in the United States rather from any concern about, oh, is there an accent? Because oddly, accents seem to be the center of this issue, which is mildly ridiculous from where I stand. But if we're using live chat, then it's irrelevant. Well, the other thing is and I don't recall the exact statistics here, but I think the optimal live chat interactions are between 4 and 7 to 1. So if we look at it through that lens, we can say, well, what has historically taken a 1-to-1 reference, or one agent and one customer, is now one agent to 4 to 7 customers. So we need 3 to 6 fewer agents for every one interaction, right? So, or for every one historical agent, I should say. So that's a big shift in how we manage interactions and the quantity of people that are needed. Um, so yes, on the surface, you're right, Shaq. There is this cultural problem. I don't know the best way to say it, but I mean, there's a cultural challenge. That said, I really want to emphasize, I don't think it's as businesses aren't really trying to respond to the political shenanigans that are going on in the United States. To give you a good Scottish or Irish word there, shenanigans. It's yeah, everybody's trying to be quiet, not say the wrong thing, because nobody wants to show up on the wrong radar and get blasted by social media or whatever. But when it comes down to it, I don't think there's any real meaningful shift in BPO utilization. Offshore BPO utilization is just not. It just doesn't make sense. So yes, on the surface, but in terms of actual movement, I don't think there's that much of a change.
Okay. Okay. Good answer. Graceful answer to a very controversial topic. Thank you so much. And I apologize putting you in a tight spot, asking you tough questions every now and then. But I mean, say it was important. It was important to that part of the story as well. Right now, before moving on to the next question, first of all, I would want to request your kind self to please stay a bit more with us today, because let us understand the BPO concept today. So if it is going about 60 minutes, if you could allow, I'm going to quickly try to wrap up, but I'm just asking for your permission. So
We're good. We started at 11, so we still have time.
Ah, okay, okay, well, that's great. So I've got some questions for you. But before that, I just want to know right now, uh, it was in the 1990s and 95, the best choice or the first choice was India for the BPOs and the call centers and uh, everything. But now, as I am seeing a shift in the choice of the country for setting up a BPO. Now they are moving to Philippines. Now they are moving to Africa as well. They are, I mean, say Philippines. Should I say Indonesia? I mean, say it is Philippines. Philippines is on top right now. Also, after India, they tried to move to China because now, because of the differences, they are moving to Philippines. They are moving to Africa. So I just want to quickly ask you: will that model of moving to other nations will offer the same quality or the same service as we used to get, or U.S. companies used to get from India? Or is that a good choice or a bad choice? Both the perspective, if you can explain, that would be great.
Sure. So let me kind of walk you through my experience. So yeah, I had some in the 90s. I did have some. It wasn't robust, but I had some Indian BPO utilization, and I'll be honest, my experience was not positive, but it was very small, and I was not necessarily high enough up the ladder to really get into all the nuts and bolts of that. But over the last few years, I had the opportunity to introduce BPO solutions with an organization where we played around with. So we leaned in heavily with the Philippines, but we had at various times other BPO solutions out of Mexico City or just outside Mexico City, the Dominican Republic. Um, and I vetted Colombia and South Africa, and I feel like there was one more, and I just don't recall what it is right now, um, as well as domestic BPO solutions in the U.S. Um, and what I can say from my experience is the Dominican. I'm just going to kind of lay it out. The Mexico BPOs, I was sorely disappointed in the quality and consistency, as well as cultural fit. And this was isolated. It was one group. I don't want to make a huge statement about Mexico in general, but it left me with such a bad taste. I probably would not explore Mexico from a BPO market again for many many years. The Dominican Republic was much better than Mexico. We did use them, and it was nice to have an offset from the Philippines again in case of weather. It was good from a redundancy standpoint. What I noticed culturally, and this is the interesting part, is how much culture plays into the quality of the output. So in the Dominican Republic, the people that were working, on for my efforts, uh, I think were highly committed, but it is a country. I mean, they were highly committed and worked at it and really wanted, I mean, yearned to do well. I mean, would work on. I, it's been a minute. So there's some huge holiday in the Dominican that's recognized, and we really had a need on this end, and in spite of the whole country taking this couple of days off, we had people that were like, no, we'll show up, we'll be there because we need the money, and we don't want to lose, we don't want to take a chance of losing these positions. Is good. So I like the work ethic, I like the drive. What we did find is because the overall infrastructure in the Dominican Republic is not ideal, it's not great. Um, if there was bad weather, and by bad weather I mean a couple of days of sustained rain, uh, we had real attendance challenges there because people could not physically drive and get, oh, the bridge washed out. Like there's no way in. We had situations where the governing group there would rent a bus and go drive off, away. I mean, people would come from an hour away, and they'd drive off and pick all these people up and bring them in, and then they'd keep them there and keep them overnight and so they get a couple of days of work before they brought them back home. And really wild stuff. But that infrastructure issue was of concern. Over in the Philippines, pound for pound, I think we had the best result. And I want to say this: uh, what, and this is part of where I think it might be a third world economy. These folks were so thankful for work, anything. At one point, we'd elected to do some performance based incentives. And I don't, this is a few years ago. I don't remember how much money we were sort of throwing at this. I think it wasn't, I didn't find it to be a huge amount by any sense, but it was like, all right, for the top X number of people in these categories at the end of the month, we're going to give you, you know, whatever it was. Let's just say, uh, $150 each or $200 each or something. And when I talked to the heads of the BPO that we were working with there and said, hey, this this can, I mean, you guys, they're part of the team. Like these guys should be eligible. They said, whoa, not trying to be weird, but that's too much. I'm like, wait, what? And they're like, you you don't understand. You need to take that down to like 25 to $50. You can do it more often, but that's too much money. And what you're going to end up with is people actually taking that and then quitting. And I'm like, that's nuts. But I took their advice, and I don't know about the quitting side. I mean, again, that's just what they said. But what I did notice is when we would put just $50 incentive prize for performance out there, these folks would kill themselves, would work so hard to try to get it. Now, I can tell you, if I put a $50 or even a $150 to there for contact center agents in the United States, one or two or three of them are going to work really hard to get that because they're hungry and eager. But the vast majority are just going to roll their eyes and just do the minimum. And I draw that contrast to say my experience was the that hunger, that need, that drive culturally in the Philippines translated to a very strong desire to have solid performance. Now, with that, it really comes down to what BPO agency you're working with, and we just happen to have a really good partnership, and so we were able to manage and interact and build culture, and we're going to get into that in a second too. But we had longevity with these employees and relationships, and they really felt like they were part of the same team. But you can very easily get involved with any number of BPOs where you're just getting whoever, and they're going to do, they're not going to feel like they're part of your organization. They might take care of your customer, but that comes down to how are they being managed? What are the expectations? Have you built a corporate culture? Do you have meaningful and understandable KPIs and good country tools that can be used? And so there's a lot of layers to this. It's certainly nothing we're going to cover today. Being effective at managing a BPO in an organization is not innate. It's not something that you just, oh, everybody can just do it. Like you gotta really pay attention, and you've got to think about, how do I respect your culture? Like, Shaq, I can't possibly understand what your life is like in half a world away on a day-to-day basis. And of course, you've lived in the U.S., so you probably have a better understanding the other way. But uh, it's wrong of me to think that I can interact with you exactly the same way as somebody that's in North Carolina and expect exactly the same result. So I think there's also a big piece of this is you have to understand the cultures, and you have to find a way to appropriately mesh them. And as I often say, and I've said on your show many times, you have to give a damn about people. And just because it's an outsourced solution does not mean you're not dealing with humans. There's still people, they're still part of a society. Just because they don't live down the road does not mean you treat people differently. You still have to care about people and bring them into the fold of your organization, and you will get out of it what you put into it. So, again, I got real rambly with that as I tend to do, but I feel passionately about that one. There is a right and a wrong way to lead teams, whether they are in your country or on the other side of the world.
Really, you have my respects, Kevin. This is the best part of Kevin Gaylord. He's the kind of leader who, uh, who really values humanity above profits. So, thank you so much. Thank you so much for that answer. To be very honest. And the other thing is, which I wanted to ask you quickly, moving to the next question before I ask you the next question, if you, in any point of time, wants to start a BPO in India, choose me.
Okay. Thank you.
I'll
I
help
will do.
you. Okay, okay. Quickly moving on to the next question, and Kevin, I just wanted to ask you. Now we are getting into the details of this industry, BPO industry, and getting into the deep into the subject. Now, I want to ask you from your experience, you've led operations across multiple industries, SaaS, fintech, and beyond. How does BPO model adapt across such different sectors? What are the core principles that make it successful everywhere?
So my VPO experience, and I'm gonna really carve out and leave the KPO stuff to the side because that's really more unique. But from a BPO standpoint, all of my experiences have to do with customer facing interactions, regardless of whether it's yeah, SaaS, fintech, manufacturing, sales, operations, telecommunications, whatever it is. They've really always been the customer interaction piece. It could be technical, it could be just general data entry, processing, but it's really always been that. I don't want to say entry level, but that front line of the organization. So my experiences, regardless of industry, have all been pretty similar. Um, there are obviously other elements, and I think the more technical you get, the more complex that question becomes, right? So, for example, um, one of the things that I know anecdotally that U.S. consumers struggle with is when they have a technical question, but they themselves are not technical people, and they contact. So let's say you're having a problem with your router, or let's just say you're having a problem with the router, and you contact the your router company or your ISP or whatever it may be. Um, and you get somebody that is outside of the United States. Um, I do find that there are some challenges on that front, or at least again, anecdotally, there's some challenges on that front. Uh, Trying to explain technical information in a manner that can be received easily by someone who is not technical, across cultures and across languages. That is something that I think is a unique challenge in the BPO world. Um, I in no way am going to suggest I have an answer for how to improve that. I really haven't ever thought about it until just now. But um, when it comes to all the things that I've had in that arena, they've all been pretty similar, and it's managing them or scaling them up has not been incredibly difficult, provided you have really clearly defined SOPs, um, and and tools and job aids and so on, and a team that's open to expanding beyond just their office. All of those things can be managed. I think it's just quality leadership, but there is a technical side of it, Shaq, that doesn't have the best solution today. Um, and that's not to say anything about the BPO agent and their knowledge. It's something about how do you iron out the wrinkles between two cultures when dealing with something that is not conversational, is actually technical and detailed. I don't know what the right answer is offhand.
Uh, First of all, say you've explained that in detail. Second thing is, you reminded me of my experience in the BPO. I was a part of a BPO before into tech support, and we used to work for 7-Eleven stores. Say most of my audience doesn't know me now. They know me as a podcast host, and which is gaining traction. So most of the people know me as a podcast host only, and before that, they know me as a, you know, I used to work for Google. Say recruiting for Google. But I've started my life when I was very young. I'm still young, but I'm still, say 10 years back. 10 years back? Yes. I think 10 years back, 2016, to be very honest. So we used to work for 7-Eleven stores. I think, Kevin, you know about them. So now these 7-Eleven stores have those registers, the POS scanners and stuff like that. And I used to work in the tech support department for these stores. So the cultural differences I'm talking about. So now we were given training and how to interact with people in the US. Now this training consisted of, say mostly they used to tell us that we should be very polite and we should show courtesy and empathy as well. So there is one particular point my trainer that is they were called as quality analysts for whenever we are on a call. These trainers were called the quality team. So I particularly remember one thing, Kevin. To be very honest, I just want to tell you this. They trained us specifically to ask people. We should never tell, "Are you able to see?" Now see the cultural difference. Say in India, it's just like if we are asking, can you see that thing? But you should always say, "Are you able to view?"
Hmm.
Because
Interesting.
the cultural difference. It say people in the US might take it on the, on the contrary, on the wrong a way of talking. They might think, "Do you think that I am mad? Sorry, I am blind? What are you asking?" So they used to train us in that in that way. We should always say, "Are you able to view the screen? Are you able to view the POS register? There is a button there. You just reboot it." And things like that. It's a basic troubleshooting steps we used to. So we need to be very careful while we are speaking to people in the US, who mostly store people who are behind the cash registers and things like that. What I used to do was, there were software upgrades installation, because I'm a software guy. So I was into software tech support. What do they call? They called it something like tech support level 3 kind of. It was a job. It was a highly technical job. As I was into software, we used to reinstall the software again and again with the new updates and everything. So we were called as production support team. So say whenever we are interacting with the technician, be it the technician, be it the store manager, be it the people behind the cash register, we need to be very specific of the choice of words. We have to be very, very particular about the words we are choosing to speak. So we were trained on that, and by listening to you, you made me recall those days. I mean, say, we were this is where I found it really tough, because we have to be very, very particular, or we have to be up on our toes when we are speaking to people in the US. And now, because of the Indian culture, we will have that slang in our tongue. We would not be able to speak in the same accent or in the same tone as I'm speaking right now. So we've got that small influence of our mother tongue. But we used to train hard every day. I used to practice hours and hours just to, twist my tongue here and there, to get into that accent and speak. And I mean, see, we are making money, and for money, we have to keep that job. To keep that job, we have to do all these things. So there was a different department for the quality, and there was a different department for the technical part, that is KPO. We had that as well. So I really did not bring the KPO topic today, but I'll definitely ask your time, and we'll discuss that also. But for the BPO model and what we have to speak, you really made me recall those days. And thank you so much. What do we call that? Nostalgia in English. Remembering those last days. It was a good experience back then, and thank you for reminding me that. And thank you so much for that answer. Quickly moving on to the next question, which is question number 3. US company rely on BPO. Now we are going to talk about why US companies rely on BPO. I apologize if I'm using the correct sentence. But let's talk about the US side now. Okay. Why do American companies continue to depend so heavily on outsourcing even after decades? Is it purely about saving costs, or has the purpose evolved into something more strategic?
Well, as I've said before, saving money is a big part of it. I don't think you can. I don't think you can get away from that, especially once you start down that road. It's very hard to say, "Oh, we should pay dramatically more just to have somebody that's onshore." It's a once you start down that road, I don't know how you pull back from it anyway. But I think it's that, uh, and I also think that I think there's three reasons. There's definitely the money. Two, I think the quality of expectation. So currently, we can kind of shine a light on the Philippines. We can say the quality has improved dramatically over the last many years. Just like we talked about earlier with India, the quality improves um, over time, and as the quality improves, of course, it becomes easier and easier to maintain. And then the third one is the more controversial one, but I'm just going to say it because it is what it is. Is that there's this workforce challenge in the United States, and there's a couple of generations, the younger generations, the earlier elements of the workforce. So your teenager, late teens, all the way up to early 30s, even where you just there's this cultural phenomenon where the people that I'm not going to get into the reasons why, but there's a majority, it seems, that definitely have a different work ethic, and some of that you can accept and absorb and work your way through and manage and train and blah blah blah. But when it comes to, for me, my experience has been consistency in attendance has been a real challenge in the United States on that level. So I think my generation, there was, I mean, you definitely, hey, if these are the hours you have to be at work, you've got to be there. You've got to be dressed appropriately. You've got to be sober. You've got to be, of sound mind. You have to, and when you go there, you got to do the best job you can. That's the path forward, not just to maintain, but that's the path forward. there's been a real cultural shift in the United States. I think it's something that, while it's still the dominant economy globally, I think it's going to hurt the U.S. Over the next several decades, um, as as the generations with a stronger work ethic start to hang up their hats and retire. I think there's going to be some real challenges, and this is not the first time we've seen this. We saw this in the early 1990s, and they actually gave it a name. Then they called it the service gap. Although not a lot of people talked about it, but there was this service gap because you had what is effectively my generation that was, in the up and coming portion of the workforce that, yeah, they would work hard and they would show up, but we, for whatever reason, were not doing the above and beyond things. We weren't taking the we had a different my generation had a different expectation, I guess, about quality service interactions. And the outset of that over time was that culturally we sort of lowered the bar of service quality expectations, which is sad. And I recognize it, and I didn't like it in real time, and I don't like it today. But now we have this like next layer of lowering the bar of expectation in the United States. And again, a little rambly, but I think that part of the third leg of the stool of why BPOs in utilization for U.S. corporations is because we have a workforce that is less willing to do the stuff that they don't want to do. So it's not just that it's less expensive. I think that a meaningful part of it is, I mentioned earlier that we had some situations with weather in the Dominican Republic where, people, they would drive these buses out into the country, going through, like, the bridges are gone, and driving this bus through a river to go get these people and bring them in, and then they got to bring like a sleeping bag because they're gonna work overnight because they aren't able to take them back home and all this. That wouldn't happen in the United States. It just would not happen. Nope, I can't get there. The weather's bad. Can't get there. Right, and I'm probably gonna drag it out longer than it actually should be. So when you start looking at that and you say, well, all right, our organization has got to have humans to do this job. We have to have somebody that is customer facing, that is able to speak to the end user of this product at whatever times, whether it's 24/7 or whatever it is. We've got to have people that are willing to do that. And if we are unable to fill that gap consistently and meaningfully within the United States, then the next option is to say, okay, well, we need to look at a BPO solution. So I think that's, again, that third leg of the stool. So yes, cost, but some other challenges that have to be overcome. And as long as culturally the countries that are making up the BPO world, as long as they can maintain reasonable pricing and that consistency in quality and work ethic, uh, I just don't see why this ends. Aside from AI interaction, which won't replace BPOs, but it will change it. And that's a whole different conversation that we don't need to start down that road.
Well, my topic of discussion for the upcoming podcast: how BPO is changing because of AI. So, thank you so much for that brief answer, Kevin. Yes, the zeal, the passion, and the will to do is what makes BPO successful, and also it what makes U.S. companies choose other countries and people from those countries. I totally agree with that point, and thank you so much for that brief answer and strong points made, Kevin. And quickly moving on to the next question, which is now we are going to flip the perspective. Impact on host countries. strictly speaking, about Indonesia or Philippines or Africa, India. Now, flipping the perspective for a moment, when a US company set up a BPO operation abroad, what actually happens in those host countries? How does it affect employment, skill building, and local economies?
I mean, this one is pretty obvious. I think you're introducing you're introducing you're introducing money and pay without having to build out a manufacturing facility, right? So that's a in any other scenario that just can't happen, right? So we're saying for minimal cost, I mean, very, very, very low implementation cost, you can start paying a large percentage or a large number of people in, these metropolitan areas. Typically, uh, you're introducing something that normally would take a long time to develop, right? So if manufacturing is generally the way that you introduce new revenues to an area, especially in emerging markets. Uh, and manufacturing has a slow implementation period. It's got a build up period. It's very slow, and then if it's successful, eventually you have a consistent workforce and a consistent uh, economy built around that. BPO introduction and incorporation into a metropolitan area, it's very fast. It's a lot of positions you can employ in no time. I mean, inside of a year, you can employ a meaningful percentage of a metropolitan area by introducing the right size BPO, and that's a game changer, right? I mean, you're bringing money in. The Philippines is a fabulous example because I mean, here's an area that very, very, very. I mean, there. I don't remember. I don't remember the numbers. I wish I'd look these up, but I might look it up while we're talking. But you have an area that is historically not making very much money, and then you turn on this business where you can say, okay, well, we need 400 or 500 employees in the next 3 weeks. I mean, that's a meaningful shift, and we're going to pay you well. Uh, Let me see something here. Income, Philippines. Yeah, so the average family income, not one person. This is your average family income in the Philippines. The last reference is about a year and a half old here, but $6,300 US. Okay, $6,300 US. The average, I don't know what the average, the same thing for a contact center worker, but I'm going to say I think it's times would be about 44,000. Probably a little north of that, but let's call it 45,000 versus 6,300. So, you know, when you start digging into that, you say, wow. So if we're paying you, I mean, we can pay you nothing, and it's still huge. So if these folks, let's see, so the average U.S. contact center worker, I want to say, makes about $21 an hour. I think that might be higher now, which translates to about $44,000 a year, U.S. If you're paying someone in the Philippines $5 an hour, so less than a quarter, that's $10,500 a year, which is almost double what their average is. So when you start looking at that, I mean, it's a game changer. Oh yeah, if I'm an employer in the United States, no, sure, I'll pay you $5 an hour. That's great for me. I'm saving $16 an hour for every hour worked. And that $5, once you ramp it up for the whoever's managing the BPO, might go up to, maybe even $10, but it's still half the cost. And the person at the other end is making double what their neighbors make. And they're getting to do it in an air conditioned office with a break room, and they don't have to buy the computer, it's right there, and the phone and all these things. So what does it do to these economies? I mean, it's a game changer. VPOs in emerging economies, it's ludicrous to think that you wouldn't want that. Like everybody wins. And where it becomes sustainable, and using the Philippines as an example, is that eagerness to continue doing it, that desire, much like you said, Shaq, you spend hours trying to work on your accent or whatever it is. I mean, whatever it is that these folks, the corporations out of the US are trying to accomplish, you have an eagerness and a desire to hone that skill set. That's the sweet sauce, and that's what makes all of this work. So yeah, I mean, it's a win-win-win. And what does it do to these economies? I mean, it saves them, it makes them. Inversely, what does it do when they leave? Right, that's a different question. What if that business shuts down? Hard to, if you've been, let's say you do this for 5 years, and you're making, $10,000, $15,000 a year, and then it goes away. So now your average goes down to less than half, maybe a third of what you were making. It's hard to unwind something like that. So there's a huge incentive to make it continue working too. That's it.
Exactly. Exactly. I totally agree with that point. And thank you so much for that brief answer. Um, you know, that's such an important point. Outsourcing doesn't just serve corporations, it can empower communities when done responsibly. I mean, say it's a win win situation, as you have said. You get, I mean, say the companies in the US get job done in real time and fast with quality, and the people here make some money. I mean, say they get jobs. I mean, say they're not uh, not only money; they are making good money. I mean, the standard of living raises for these people. As I've already said, most of the people who work in the BPO have started from normal or simple backgrounds. They make good money. Um, so it's a win-win situation for all. So quickly moving on to the next question. Now, as always, the theme of the Shack podcast, the humanitarian side, the people first factor. Now, the question which I have for you is, you have always emphasized people first leadership. How does that philosophy translate inside the BPO ecosystem, especially when you are managing teams across different cultures and time zones?
Yeah, this is maybe the most important question, Shaq, from where I sit. So let me tell you what I think most organizations do, or many do, and that is, when it's outsourced, it's just numbers on paper. There's no relationships. We talked last week about private equity companies coming in, and one of the things I said is, yeah, well, when a lot of, generally when a private equity company comes in, they have no relationship with the employees. So when it comes time to, oh, we need to cut X percent of employees, there's no relationship, there's no touch, they're just numbers on a page. And generally speaking, corporations using BPO assets, they're numbers on a page. There's no relationship, right? Yeah, I mean, your frontline management team, sure, but not at an executive level. And this is, from where I sit, this is a mistake for a lot of reasons. Loyalty is one of them, but uh, how do I think it should be different? Well, as I said earlier, I think you have a responsibility to incorporate your corporate culture, not just with your domestic assets, but with your BPO assets. And you need to have a relationship with those folks. So one organization that I was a part of, we had BPO agents, and when we would do like all staff meetings, town hall meetings, the BPO agents weren't invited. Like, what? How's that? They're you're letting them talk. If they're important enough to talk to your customer, then they damn sure better be important enough to get to spend time with the executive team. That's just absurd, you know. So if you're doing coding behind the scenes or something, and you're in the KPO world, and that's how you want to have it, maybe there's a way to make that work. But if you're going to have somebody that's actually touching your customer in some way, you better have them included in everything that's going on. You better treat them like they're in the office down the hall, and not in a cubicle 10,000 miles away. You need to, that mentality's got to be there. And it's something that is so easily overlooked by so many organizations, and a real shame. So I know when I've talked to hundreds of BPO agents over time. One of the things I hear a lot is, oh, well, I worked for 7-Eleven, I worked for Google, I worked for this company, I worked for this company, and this company. I'm like, why aren't you still working with one of those companies? What changed? Why didn't you stay? Well, this was a better opportunity here, or, whatever. Well, I think the problem is there's turnover because you aren't building loyalty on either side, right? I'm not creating loyalty from a BPO agent to my organization if I don't give a damn about that person. And, they're not going to express a positive customer experience that's reflective of loyalty on their end for the same reason. They're going to go through the motions of doing the best, but it's a big difference when somebody actually really cares. You can't fake that. They'll go that extra mile. They'll work harder, and they'll create a better customer experience if they feel like they're actually a part of your organization. So it's a big mistake that goes on today, and one that is, I don't want to say it's easily avoidable. It's not easy, but it is avoidable, and you just have to decide that that's how you're going to treat people.
Exactly. Another good one, Kevin, to be very honest with you. This is what makes you different from other leaders. And I always say this, and I'll say this again. Uh, this is the kind of leader we need today. I mean, say business and profits. I just heard a saying that you take care of your employees and they will take care of your business. I think Tim Cook. Yeah. So yes, I mean, say if you are taking care of your employees like this, just like Kevin has explained, and this is what makes him very different from other people, and this is what I respect about him so much, right from the heart, because he's the kind of leader and who respects the people. For him, the profits, people comes first, then the profits, and that is actually a very very win-win situation for both the business and the people will get the kind of respect that they deserve, and also they will do anything, they will go out of the way for the success of the business or the organization. Nicely said, nicely put, Kevin, to be very honest. Thank you so much for that answer. This is this is what makes me very happy whenever I speak to you. You speak on the human aspect. And to be very honest with you, this particular question and answer clip will go to all the social media channels with a promotion. To be very, I'm going to invest some money as well on this, so it gets promoted on the you know on the social media, on X and other social media. So quickly moving on to the next question. Now, coming quickly to the next question, which is again related to business now. Now, driving efficiency and excellence. So, Kevin, one thing that stands out in your career is your focus on efficiency, like the $3 million CRM build that increased retention by 22%, 22%, if I am not wrong. How does technology and process optimization play a role in transforming BPO operations?
Well, so this is another one of these areas where you can succeed or fail based on the tools and that you have to provide. So if you have one of the things we see a lot of is a lack of intentionality in your technology stack. So you might have oh, our customer facing agents use 5 different systems to handle their tasks, depending on what they're doing. They've got to touch all these different systems. Well, that's a lot of complexity, right? And that's very common. And that's a lot of complexity, and it takes time, and you're going to have a lot of mistakes. You've increased your opportunity for error greatly, and you also you lose potentially you're losing data throughout this, and consistency in how you're actually managing all these different streams and systems. So then when you introduce this to someone that is on the other side of the world, and now we say, okay, so we have an increase in training time. So your onboarding is going to take longer because we're not teaching you how to use one intentionally designed system or two. Right? I got to teach you how to use all these different systems in all these different scenarios. Right. So now I'm teaching you 50 different things instead of one or two or three workflows. And with that comes obviously more expense on the front end to onboard folks and get them, doing it. There's a longer period of time involved in the learning curve of getting to quality and consistency and performance. So we have to invest more time and money into getting somebody onboarded and getting them to be good. Uh, and you're going to have a much higher rate of errors and problems and all those things that come with it. So, how does technology interplay? Well, I say, it's not just the age of the technology, it's the intentionality of the design and the simplicity of the user experience. That UI has got to be, I mean, it's really what's a little bit of the Apple model, right? So Apple, one of the things when Steve Jobs was alive, and he started rolling into the iPad, or excuse me, the uh, what was that thing called? The
The
MP,
music player,
yeah, the whatever that was, and uh,
Apple.
uh, and the phone when the iPhone came out. These, he was adamant. We are not putting an instruction booklet in the box, right? He was hell bent on that. He said, if it's not simple enough to understand intuitively, then we haven't built it right. And so the iPhone in particular, we'll just use that. It's that core of its design was it has to be so intuitive that you don't ever need an instruction manual. And it's never been. iPhone doesn't come with instructions whatsoever. You open the box, it says hello, you pop it out, you turn it on, it walks you through the startup, and everything else you figure out. And it's not, it's very complex, but it's simple in its user interface. Uh, that's the logic that has to take place from a technology standpoint to be effective in a BPO environment. Make it so it makes common sense, so that there are process flows, so that there is a customer experience journey that is logical and effective. And then you also have from a leadership and QA and QC standpoint, it's very easy to manage, because now instead of having to manage 48 different complex scenarios, you can say, oh, there's 2 or 3 process flows and there's 1 or 2 systems, and my touch points might be a dozen different things to look for versus hundreds in another scenario. So now I can manage it very easily, and which means I can improve the quality and the output of the employee. I can onboard them faster. I can probably keep them longer because they won't be frustrated. I can have a better customer experience, and I can improve or adjust quality assurance, quality controls in real time because I've made it manageable. So your question of how does technology affect this? Technology and the intentionality of it is everything. You got to get that right. And I know that's an investment financially, but if you don't have that, I mean, you're probably not going to last all that long as an organization. And it's just a reality.
Awesome, awesome. Uh, say great answer by the great Kevin Gaylord. So quickly moving on to the next question, and before moving to the next question, I just want to tell and also know people who are listening to us live, also people who are watching this recording. If you've got any questions regarding business process outsourcing of any other parts of the business, Kevin would be happy to answer all your questions. Do reach out to him regarding any questions you have. Organizations, any company, any organizations wants to get in touch with Kevin, LinkedIn profile. I'm going to put the link to his LinkedIn profile right after this podcast, and you can reach out directly to him. Also, know more about Ops Sherpa and how he can be, a fractional consultant. uh, that is also Kevin. Do you want to speak about the fractional part here?
Yeah, I mean, any organization that wants to either improve or take a look at or get an assessment of the operating arm of their business, uh, including their technology stack, cybersecurity, AI incorporation, all the way down to just how they communicate, leadership skills, any of those things. Uh, yeah, so we have Op Sherpa. I would be more than happy to have a conversation and an overall quick assessment or discussion of next steps with any organization globally. Um, to chime in and see if there's something we could do to help each other out.
Awesome, awesome. So you can get in touch with Kevin through his LinkedIn profile. That is the best way. I'm also going to give his the link in the comments, and if at all, I'll try to put his email address as well in the comments if possible. So do get in touch with Kevin and ask him lots and lots of questions. He would be generously ready to answer them all whenever he is free. Say he's a very busy person, but whenever he's free, he would definitely get back to you. Moving on to the next question, Kevin, quickly, the role of data and KPIs. Now we did not discuss about this, so let's quickly discuss about this part as well. You are a big believer in data-driven leadership. So OKRs, KPIs, and operating rhythms. How do those metric shape performance inside a BPO organization?
So, pretty easy question. Obviously, everybody has to be held to a performance expectation. That expectation should be largely quantifiable, hence the KPIs. They need or OKRs, whatever, but they need measurable results. They need them provided as close to real time as possible. They need a cadence for discussion of their performance, so that whether that's monthly or quarterly or even weekly if it needs to be, and most importantly is they need to understand what drives those results. So You want to be very careful. So, in a contact center environment, for example, average handle time is a very common KPI. You want to be really careful with not just saying, "Hey, we expect you to have a 7-minute average handle time," because what's going to happen is they're going to monitor that and say, "Oh, geez, I'm at 8.5 minutes. I'm just going to start cutting conversations short." Right? And what have you now you've only taught them a very bad lesson. What you need to say is we're looking for a 7-minute average handle time uh, that we manage through efficiencies in blah 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 because we've got to hit these 12 different things on every customer contact and make those 12 things more important than an arbitrary, somewhat arbitrary KPI of an average handle time. So you need to connect behavioral expectations with quantifiable outputs, and that is so easy to get lost. Uh, it's really tragic, actually. So KPIs, I mean, they matter, but the why and the how behind them is far more important than anything else.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much for that brief answer. To be very honest with you, uh, you know, that's gold, Kevin. So many leaders focus on numbers, uh, you know, uh, but you also have that. I mean, say you concentrate on the humanitarian side plus efficiency and discipline as well. So, thank you so much. Graceful points, I mean, say good points laid out there. Quickly moving on to the next question now, Kevin. Now, we'll discuss about the change management and resilience. So, managing large scale BPO operations also means managing constant change. New clients, new systems, new challenges. How do you build resilience and adaptability in teams during those transitions?
Yeah, so you should have an implementation plan that any organization should have some form of an implementation plan that says when we bring a new client on, here's how we're going to roll everything out. Ideally, you have it so mapped out that in the negotiating space, let's say you have your executive teams talking to another organization's executive teams. One of the questions that's going to come up is what's the onboarding period? How long is it going to take to go live? You need to know in advance what that implementation plan or onboarding plan looks like so that you can say, well, we need, um, 3 weeks to roll this thing out. Once we've established the SOPs and expectations and KPIs and so on and so forth. So you build that into your Gantt chart of onboarding and say, okay, so when we hit the point that we've established what the performance is going to look like for this program, we're going to tack on 3 to 4 weeks or whatever it is to roll it out. And then that period is meaningful for the people that are actually going to be interacting with the customers because then they're going to learn all those expectations and how to manage it, have time to practice it and role play it and do all that good stuff. Uh, run it through the system and make sure there's no flaws in the programming and so on. And that's that's change management 101 anyways. Just have a clear plan, make sure it's well communicated and tested, but build enough time in so that you can manage it and roll it out appropriately.
That is such a masterclass in business, to be very honest with you. Uh, you know, uh, in leadership, guiding people through uncertainty with clarity and calm. So, thank you for that masterclass answer. Uh, Quickly moving on to the second last question, which I have for you. Uh, it is basically the last question, but I still have last piece of advice, so that would be the last. So quickly, I'll ask this question: common misconceptions. This is based on common misconceptions. So let's address the big myths. What's one common misconception about outsourcing that you wish more people understood?
Um, ooh. Um, I think that that would be that that BPO assets or agents, whatever, employees are not innately qualified or competent to take on more complex tasks. I think there is a genuine sense that you are getting um, a very, very, very entry level, very new, knows nothing kind of an employee. Whereas a lot of BPO assets are very experienced across lots of industries. Some of them far more so than any domestic assets. So I think that would be the misconception that I think people should come to realize. There's more quality out there than they know.
That's such a needed clarification, Kevin, to be very honest. BPO isn't, say, this misconception had had to be addressed. So thank you so much for that clarification. The last and final question, Kevin, for you. I know it's getting stretched out here, but this is the last question. So the future of BPO. Uh, Finally, I want to ask you, or let's talk about the road ahead. With AI automation and remote work evolving rapidly, where do you see the BPO model heading in the next 5 to 10 years? And also, I have decided to do one more show based on this question. So, quickly, your answer, please.
I don't think that it's going to change meaningfully. I think that's just the tools are going to change. So I don't expect AI in any capacity to replace BPO. I do, however, think it will refine it in ways. Um, so if we think about one of the challenges that we've discussed today around sort of problem solving, right? So we can map out and we can train the process flows, but when we come to more out of the box, problem solving, that gets harder in a BPO environment, especially when someone is newer. But we can use AI, for predictive analytics and knowledge based management and helping people to come to the solutions that they need to without necessarily, if I have somebody who's worked for us for 2 months, they're going to probably struggle with a more complex situation that might come up versus somebody who, maybe if we have a BPO agent that's been around for 2 years, they can work through it a little easier. But AI, I think, levels the learning curve uh, from a technology standpoint. But once again, that goes to intentionality in the technology design. So you have to make sure that you have the tools at hand and that you train people for how to use them and sort of test it and vet the technology. But I don't expect over the next 10 years that you're going to see any meaningful reduction in BPO. I think what you're going to see is a change in how the tools are used.
That brings us to the same thing, which I spoke before, which is upskilling ourselves. Learning AI.
Mhm.
The AI can be applicable in this different aspects of life, not only in BPO. So, what is relevant, we should be ready and learn those skills so that we don't get easily replaced by AI. AI is just like automation, to be very honest. Whenever you call a bank, you'll listen to a voice saying, press 1, 2, 3. So, automation at the end of the day, at the end of the call, you still want to speak to a human at the end of the other call, because that is just like automation. AI can be very helpful in streamlining some entry level jobs, but most of the things right now, I does not know about the future. AI cannot replace, is what I think. Um, your views, please, on this.
Yeah, so I mean, that's a very complex question there, but no, I think that I don't think that AI is a broad scale replacing of human assets. I think that it is an enhancement of what we can get out of those human assets and the quality and even quantity of output that can be brought. So if we look back at say the 1980s, um, Japan uh, revolutionized uh, manufacturing workforce, right, by saying how do we squeeze every ounce of every second of every person at every point in industrial manufacturing, and they really created this hyper efficient model that the rest of the world scrambled to catch up with. And I think a lot of what we see in society today is still a byproduct of that period of 10 to 20 years. I think now what AI does is it allows us to continue that hyper efficient model, but with less hours and effort. So I think it allows us to maybe backpedal on the frenetic pace that we've had to work at for so long. Maybe that's just being optimistic, but I that's what I think. Yeah.
Do you think that can you compare this AI revolution to the industry revolution of the 1900s or the internet revolutions of the late 1990s, late 90s, I think. So can you compare to uh, both uh, in the same
No,
thing?
I mean, I think it's directly comparable. I think it's about how can we be more efficient with the tools that we have already, and it's meaningful. We're not just a small step. It's a huge step in terms of efficiency. The question really is, what do we do with that efficiency? Are we going to, say, nope, we have to keep running at a sprint instead of we're not running a marathon. We're just always sprinting and killing ourselves because we want to squeeze every dime out of every second of every day. Or are we going to say, yeah, this allows us to do what we need to do and what we want to do, and not feel broken and worn out at the end of the day. My optimistic thought is that it'll be the latter.
Okay. Well, I hope so. I hope so because seeing the current scenario, well, I mean, say it's my perspective, it's my point of view. I'm not telling that it can be right or it can be wrong, but what I think is what is currently happening right now. It's very scary situation out there. AI is taking away entry level jobs. There are more graduates on the streets right now, college, out of jobs. There is one other person on LinkedIn, which is my connection. Her name is Sarah. She did some research, which is very scary. Uh, no raises. People are afraid to, because of AI. That is what I think. But I hope that I'm keeping my hopes high. And just like you said, being optimistic should be our way forward. Um, Anyways, anyways, well, thank you so much. I have already stretched the session so much. Now, Kevin, thank you so much for being here today and for sharing your depth of knowledge and experience with us. You have given us a real inside look how the BPO world operates, not just as a business model, but as a bridge that connects global talent, innovation, and opportunity. And to everyone listening, I hope this conversation helped you see the outsourcing and that outsourcing isn't just about cost efficiency, it's about building connections, creating jobs, and scaling potential worldwide. Kevin, your generosity, your time, and your leadership are deeply appreciated, and I can't wait to have you back again. Thank you so much, Kevin. And thank you so much, my lovely audience who are watching live and also who are watching recording of this session. This is Shaq signing off from the Shaq podcast. Stay curious, stay inspired, and keep learning the systems that shape our world.